Good evening and welcome to Heart and Hand Rangers podcast. I am your host, Adam Thornton. This is a very short preview now that the teams are out finally for the Union Saint-Gilloise and Rangers Champions League qualification first leg. I'm joined first of all by Stephen Harrigan. Hello.
Good evening, how are we?
Good, thank you. Good. A little bit puzzled about the team, but I think we'll come on to that. I'm also joined by Ross Hutton. Ross, how's things?
Good evening, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So the team tonight, which I'm sure you're all digesting currently, is John McLaughlin in goals, Tavernier, Goldson, Sands and Barisic as the defence. No surprises there. Lundstrom, Kamara and Jack as the midfield three. And then up front, or in the attack, we've got Malik Tillman, Ravi Matondo and Antonio Cholak. Harrigan, come to yourself first. Maybe a surprise not to see Tom Lawrence, both Tillman and Matondo being flung in from the start?
I think it's probably down to European experience and experience where Matondo has in this league. Lawrence didn't have the best game on Saturday, so it might be a case of easing him in. I think when you look a wee bit further back, Van Bronckhorst has liked playing Gio in that role, Kamara in that role, and then pushing him further up, and he's got that license to drop deeper when he can. So we went for a wee bit of security blanket as well. We'll also have a degree of flexibility in our own formation. We know that in game we can switch to a back three, back five, whatever we're on or off the ball, what to do with that in terms of Lundstrom dropping back. But pretty much tried and tested. He's went with, I think many of us expected the midfield three, but he sacrificed a wee bit of creativity, probably be the first leg and not want to be over aggressive and be out the tie before you're really in it.
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. I guess we're so used to seeing Lundstrom, Kamara and Jack as a midfield three, but as Stephen said, it's conceivable that either Lundstrom could go back at some phases, but also Kamara could be part of that front three, as we've seen quite a lot. So it could quite conceivably be Lundstrom and Jack holding, if you like, with Kamara, Tillman and Matondo in attack. What's your reaction to the team, first of all?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think the key thing for me in terms of that midfield is you're right, Kamara can play further forward. And we've seen that a wee bit from Gio already, that he does like to push Kamara further forward. Played there, of course, for Finland quite frequently. So he is comfortable in that sense. How happy I am at that is maybe a different question. I'm not sure it's Kamara's natural role in terms of... in Europe, yes, it with ball recovery, in terms of managing to keep control of a game, yes, absolutely. In terms of what we want him to do, in terms of our attacking penetration, the balls that he can play, is he the man for that? I'm not entirely convinced. I think the big thing we're talking about, Stephen, there, about the flexibility, James Sands as well is in there. He's a massively flexible player in terms of, not just in terms of the back four, but also maybe changing into a back five over the course of a game. Tillman in there's the big one for me. We've seen the impact that he came on and made at the weekend now, albeit that was against Livingston in a different kind of game. This is a completely different challenge, but this is the kind of game that we'd like him to make an impact in. If he can have the kind of impact today that he had at the weekend, then we might be on to a winner there. Obviously, you're missing your usual starters in terms of Kent. That's going to be a big miss, but it's maybe going to bring out a different side to this Rangers team that we've not seen before. It's a new challenge, and I'm quite excited to see how we try and answer that.
Yeah, Stephen, Dave Fleming makes a good point. All front three are all new players, which, I mean, you would expect new players to be playing, but I guess it's the fact that they've all... it's the first time that they're all playing in a competitive game together, and they are the front three. What I think we need from... whether it's a two behind them or a three behind them, we absolutely need them to get up and support and give these guys the service, particularly Cholak, who looked isolated in the first half on Saturday, and then when we got runners up to him in the second half, he started to look a little bit better. I think that's crucial. While all three of them are bedding in, we need the other players and Tavan Barisic to be up there in support of them.
That's the big thing. We need him to hold up the ball as well on occasion and draw the fouls in and get us up the park. I think it'll be a big night for Cholak. I think the strengths that he's got are not the strengths that this defence has got that we're facing, so it could be a very profitable night for him. The other two, they're vastly experienced at this level. All three have played at this level before, so while they're all new playing for us, we're not throwing them into fire. As I say, it's not like the Lawrence situation where you're going from playing the Championship in England to go and play European football, where ball retention is so key. So they'll be well versed in it. Tillman, of course, has played in the Champions League for Bayern Munich, so he's no stranger to this kind of stage as well. But I think it's just about getting on the ball. You say getting us up the field. Kamara's very good at turning out quick situations while he's playing behind the forward line, or he's playing deeper. I would like to see Lundstrom get advanced a wee bit more occasion, but I think what You've seen last season with the Lundstrom and Jack partnership really worked well for us in Europe, and we have to be wary. We're going to have to cover the flanks, so we're going to have our midfielders shut over on occasion, and that's probably another reason why he went for midfield 3. But it also means that the forward players are going to have to do a lot of work and a lot of tracking back, and preferably as the game goes on, you're probably going to see a change in the forward areas, because you'd imagine they would do a multitude of running, both forward and in defence tonight. But I really think it could be a very profitable night for Čolak, because they're not the greatest in the aggressive sense. That they're very good in the ball, the defenders for the Belgium side. And I think if we can get delivery into them, we can get the ball to wide areas, we can get behind their fullbacks if they push up, then we could get a lot of joy that way. As well, European games, it's just about being patient on occasion, isn't it?
I think, Adam, we got a
Absolutely.
comment in there as well about Glenn Kamara. Obviously, thank you, David, for saying that. Look, of course I do, always do. But we got a comment in there.
Confidence boost.
I love to see it. But we've got a comment in there about Glenn Kamara and his confidence in himself in the final third. And I think this is something I really want to see from him tonight if he does get further forward. It's just that critical decision making in and around the box, where we have seen with Kamara, and we've all moaned about it at Rangers fans before, where he does take that extra touch and he likes the security of being on the ball and that possession-based play. I know you spoke about it on the flagship last night as well. It was a criticism of him at the weekend. Whereas in Europe, and I think we have seen it before with him, he's always in our team because of that. But if we are asking him to kind of fulfill that different role and push further forward that wee bit more, I'm going to want something a wee bit sharper for him, which he is capable of. As I say, we've seen him do it with Finland, but just at this level, it's a completely different challenge for him. So I'm interested to see how he manages to tackle that tonight.
Stephen, I know on the Heart and Hand Patreon site, you guys do the preview, and you've had a close look at Union. You mentioned some of their strengths and weaknesses earlier on. We don't quite have their team yet, but in terms of how they play, I think the assumption that I've got certainly is that no team in Belgium can defend. They all tend to play 3 at the back, and they're not exactly the best at maintaining that line or 1v1 defenders. With Matondo playing and that pace that he's got, I assume that's an obvious Matondo and Tavernier. We want to get that connection going down the right-hand side and try and exploit some of those high lines.
Yeah, I think the left is going to be equally interesting, because they've chosen to play Ross Sykes at the kind of right-hand side of the defence. Now, we did play on Friday night, but he wasn't in the team at the start of the season. We know he came from Atkinson Stanley. So I wonder if he's been put in there as a wee bit of British aggression because he'll be kind of used to our style of play, or perceived to be used to our style of play. So I certainly think that's an area we can exploit. But as a general defending, they were one of the better teams in Belgium last year. But across the board, the general level defending isn't particularly good. I will say their goalkeeper is far better than some of the Belgian sides we faced. I think he will come for cross balls. He will come for corners. He's got very good handling. But defending in general, they do like to push up. They do like to be aggressive. And it's like the Belgian teams we've faced before, where they primarily want to go down the wings. And this side probably looks for a wee bit more cutbacks. They're a wee bit more what you would call analytics focus. So they obviously foresee they get a better opportunity to go by cutting the ball back. So that's what we have to look for and defend against. But they're spacing behind them in the Walkley space. I mean, I think we have to keep in mind that as big a match this is for ourselves, and we hope it will be. It's a massive match for them. It's probably the biggest match in their history, because they've came from really nowhere. They've got promoted last season, finished second in the league. So a lot of pressure on them. The game's not their home ground. And we should go there with full confidence because of these situations that we've outlined. They've not been big spenders, and to take a guy from Atkinson Stanley and put him in the right hand side of that defence, I would get running at him early and test him. The left hand side, Tillman, yes, he's very impressive. He looks very comfortable on the ball, very strong on the ball. But I think both sides we can exploit it, and we can get good 1-on-1 matchups.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? Some of the players coming from Accrington, obviously we've had some as well ourselves, so we can't really be too critical. But I'm not sure many of us would be keen for Matt Crooks to be playing in the Champions League for us. So I guess it's all relative. Just looking at their team, which has come out now, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce any of the names, but they have pretty much the same team that beat Charleroi at the weekend there. Obviously a good win for them, and both Vanziar and Adingra are starting up front. Stephen, I think with no John Suter and Ben Davies on the bench, Goldson and Barisic, I guess we'll need to be very aware of them. We have struggled against a front two, particularly when we go man for man. Not as much when Bassi was playing, but obviously he's not here now, so that's something that we're going to have to be aware of, because I know you were quite impressed with both of them.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. That's what they would have looked at. They would have done the scouting as well. Their team gets coached as well. We have to remember that. I think we have to sometimes we're over aggressive, and then, especially in the kind of defenders that we have now, that can leave us open to getting turned, as you've seen at the weekend. So my advice would be not get too tight. I'll probably sit a wee bit deeper, and again, it probably goes back to the team that we've named, that we've got that wee bit of extra protection in there. We've got players that can drop in. Lundstrom can drop that wee bit deeper. We know the protection Jack offers, especially in that right-hand side. So it might just be a case of doubling up, get numbers in, so that if Golson or Sands does get dragged in, somebody falls in behind and we get that protection behind them. And I think the other thing I will say, McLaughlin does like to come out a wee bit more and a wee bit quicker than McGregor. So that's something we're going to see in a difference we'll see this year. We'll just have to see how that pans out.
Definitely. Just very quickly, there's a comment here. Cammy says you're giving away complimentary signed books. I will sign the book and give you a compliment in exchange for £14, Peter. Thank you. Ross, just last comment then, I guess, on the team. The subs for Rangers is a very strong bench, obviously, or very strong in theory. Given that we don't know huge amounts about how Davis and Yilmaz are going to go. Lawrence being on the bench is a little bit of a surprise to me. As I said earlier on, it's possibly that we're not expecting to have huge amounts of the ball. Maybe he prefers Matondo and Tillman in terms of off the ball, what he's seen, maybe keeping possession. I'm not sure. But looking at that bench, then obviously we've got Arfield, Scott Wright, Sakala, Tom Lawrence to come on in the attacking options. We have capability there. All four of them can play across the midfield, across the attacking four. So we've seen how good Arfield can be. We've seen how good Wright and Sakala can be in a kind of counter-attacking sense coming off the bench. So if we need to, there is firepower there, and there's options for us to change things up.
Yeah, there's options. That's the key thing, and that's always what you want coming off the bench, especially at this kind of level. Now, listen, I think we've all raised frustrations before, rightly or wrongly, that likes of Wright and Fashion Sakala, so you can maybe hear my dogs in the background there. I'll let you go back to Stephen.
Typical. Stephen, one of the comments coming in here is no natural width on the left-hand side. Where is it? Thought we might have seen Matondo on the left. We may do. He has played quite a lot on the left. We won't really know until the team comes out. That could be an option, and maybe we'll see Tillman slightly wider with Kamara pushed up. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I guess the bonus with someone like Matondo is he can play on both sides.
I think that's what the manager's looking for. I think he's looking for fluidity in that front three. And even if it's Kent in there, everybody will be interchanging. So whatever team sets out, if it's for 10, 15 minutes, we've got fluid. We get fluid in our formation. We get fluid in what side the players can play in. We're not going to be that rigid team anymore. We're going to chop it and change it. The options we have from the bench are plentiful. And they're different options. Some are more direct than others. But everybody on there can come and make an impact. And that's the thing for tonight. It's a big game. But it's a game we don't have to win. We just don't have to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some comments coming in about Yilmaz. Maybe see him play wide left later on if the game is open. Not sure. I think if we can get away with it, Yilmaz and Davies I would keep in reserve, Ross, rather than not necessarily throwing them in, but they're sort of defensive players. If we see something on the left, absolutely we can bring them in. But I think just for their kind of sake, getting themselves up to speed, I think we need to wait until the weekend for them. Ross has dropped off, Stephen, so I'll come back to you for that. You expecting them to get flung in, or do you think it'll be a wait and see?
I think the only reason they would get flung is if it was a very comfortable scoreline. Maybe come on for the last few minutes just to get a wee feel of it. But the couple of home games we've got coming up in the league, and that I think that's a perfect opportunity to kind of blood them in, get them more training under their belts. So yeah, I don't foresee them playing a massive role unless something goes terribly wrong and you get an injury. They were forced to put them on, or the game's very comfortable and it's a case of we feel of it under their belts. Certainly with the 5 subs, they could get the last 5-10 minutes, but kind of meaningful action, I expect that to come in the coming weeks and coming fixtures.
Yeah, I agree with James. I don't think now is the time, certainly, to bed them in. I know possibly people will think Sands isn't good enough to start, and I know the jury is still out in Barisic in terms of how he can play. Billy Reid saying he thinks Barisic will be targeted all night. We'll have to wait and see, but I would agree with James. It's not the time to throw them in. We can't win the game tonight. We can obviously get one foot in the next round, but as a away game in Europe, just taking it back to Ibrox, I think is absolutely fine for us. Stephen, I think we'll finish off with just a quick prediction then, based on what you've seen of the team and based on what you've watched of Union. What are you going for?
I think I took 2-0 in the previous show. I'm going to stick with that. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 2-1, but I'm very confident we can go there and get the desired result. We've clearly got a bit of pedigree in Europe now. And it's a result that I think that's more than within our means.
Ross, you're back just in time to give us a prediction, not to comment on what we've just spoke about for 2 minutes, but to give us a prediction on how you think it's going to go.
I think we should go there with full of confidence. As you said, I think a lot of the pressure's on them, given it's the first time we've been in Europe for the 58 years. So I'm going to say, stick my neck out and say 2-0 Rangers tonight. I think we'll do a confident, competent job and bring the result back to Ibrox.
Brilliant. I think I'm going to be not as confident. I'm going to go for a 1-0. I think the team is interesting. It's kind of knocked me a little bit. I don't think it'll be a straight 4-3-3. I think we'll see a variation there. So it'll be interesting to see how we set up. And I'm looking forward to seeing Matondo and Tillman. Those are two that have excited me from the flashes that I've seen. So I'll go for 1-0. Okay, that will do us for tonight. I hope everyone enjoys the game. If you are not a Patreon subscriber, then please go to heartandhand.co.uk/Patreon. You can sign up and listen to up to 5 podcasts per day. We'll have a post-match show with Colin after the game, and David will be back on YouTube with his usual post-match video as well. So please go and sign up if you haven't already. Thank you all for joining again. Almost 500 people just on the StreamYard link, which is incredible at this time of night. So thank you very much. Stephen, pleasure having you on.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Ross, thank you.
My dogs and I say thank you.
And thank you all again. Hope your team wins.